Hey, good evening, guys. It's great to be here. Great to talk about the Broncos all the way here in Philadelphia.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, those guys got really busy starting off with the #2 pick with Von Miller. But let's take an overall picture right now. Based on the needs and the scheme change and the previous foundation that they had, how do you feel like the Broncos did overall throughout the NFL draft?
Well, I can only tell you based on my evaluation of the players as they transition and project to the NFL. And I think they made some very, very good picks. But I can tell you that based on my film analysis, a number of the players they chose, particularly later in the draft, I think project very well as NFL players and even starters.
Like Julius Thomas, Mike Muhammad, Virgil Green, Jeremy Beal, Quentin Carter. I mean, which of these guys are standing out for you as far as how they will project at the next level?
Well, I don't know if Virgil Green had a medical, and I've heard from some that he might have had a medical issue.
Okay.
But I have to tell you, and maybe I'm crazy and I've been called worse, but I thought Virgil Green on film was one of the most dynamic tight ends in this draft. I thought he had elements in his game of Vernon Davis when he came out of Maryland. He's very straight line, but very, very explosive. And I thought, just looking at him as a sheer talent, I thought he easily could have been a second or third round pick in this draft.
They had 9 picks. A lot of people expected that defensive line help. We'll talk about that in a bit. But is there anybody who they really was on the board that they probably passed up that maybe they'll live to regret?
We know they had defensive line needs, and I believe they have defensive tackle needs. I think we also have to understand this particular year, because of the crazy labor situation, that free agency has not occurred yet. So this is the first way to improve your team, not the last way. So I think we have to keep that in mind.
When they picked Raheem Moore, for example, with the 45th pick, guys like Marvin Austin were still on the board from UNC Chapel Hill. Just tell me maybe how you feel about those guys, or even a tight end like DJ Williams, because they picked up a couple tight ends in this draft as well.
Well, just to mention Williams, I had Virgil Green rated higher. So, again, just that's my film analysis. But when you talk about defensive tackle, I like Stephen Paya from Oregon State, and I thought he was a very, very good player. But here's again where I think they drafted for need, and Raheem Moore was clearly the top safety in this draft. Quentin Carter is the opposite. I think he has some limitations. I think he's better the closer he is to the line of scrimmage. It's, of course, why he was drafted later in the draft. But I think they drafted 2 safeties who are complements to each other. One in Moore is a deep safety. The other in Carter is better closer to the line of scrimmage.
So because of that, obviously there might be some people on the current Broncos roster that might be in danger, whether it be Wesley Woodyard, DJ Williams, it could be Mario Hagan, it could be Joe Mays. Which of those players, because of the fact that they picked up Nate Irving, Von Miller, and such, do you think perhaps would be in danger? And do you like their linebacker picks?
Well, I happen to really like Nate Irving. And in fact, I know Bill Parcells is on record as saying he had him as a first-round pick. I didn't quite have him that high, but I think Nate Irving is a very scheme-versatile player. He's a run-and-chase linebacker with athleticism, sideline-to-sideline range. I think he's an NFL starter. And I think DJ Williams, of the group you mentioned, Josina, is really the only linebacker that is likely to be a starter when everything lays out and we start week 1, whenever that might be.
But I think also that was kind of curious is the fact that they picked up an offensive lineman, and a lot of people thought because of that Ryan Harris also might be in trouble at the tackle position, just because he has shown some durability issues, whether it's been in the back, in the toe, or what have you. But they ended up going with Orlando Franklin out of Miami in the 2nd round. What do you think about him?
Well, he's a tempo setter. He's a nasty temperament player. He played left tackle at the University of Miami. He will transition to the NFL either at right tackle or inside at guard. So he very likely could challenge Ryan Harris at right tackle. But this is the kind of pick you like because he's a mean, nasty player. That's the John Fox template. So I think Orlando Franklin clearly fits what they want to do offensively.
John Fox said yesterday the draft is one piece, free agency is the second piece to fill out your entire roster. Who do you see that could be out there that might be able to help them immediately?
They obviously need defensive tackles. My guess is right now, if we started the season, they'd have Marcus Thomas and Kevin Vickerson as their starters. And by the way, I don't think either one of those guys are bad players. I think ultimately what they'll look for are rotation players. I don't think they would spend a lot of money on a defensive tackle, quite honestly.
And speaking of lots of money then, do you think that Albert Haynesworth is a John Fox guy? Because I know you talked to John Fox. Fox. Based on what you know of his ilk as a defensive-minded coach, is Albert Haynesworth, do you think he could be a John Fox guy?
Yeah, I think he could, and clearly Albert Haynesworth at his best is a terrific player. The big question when you're trying to build a program and you're starting from scratch is whether you want a player who you almost don't know what you're going to get on a daily basis, as to whether you want that influence in your locker room.
Well, you know what? There might not be anyone on this planet who watches as much film as Greg Cosell. We appreciate having you and your analysis with the Broncos draft. And again, thank you for joining us.